Hello everyone, I am Princess Anne Artraya, and today I will present to you my performance task number 2, short story analysis. The short story that I choose is Mother Sauvage, also known as La Mère Sauvage, by French author Guy de Maupassant. This story has a unique structure. It has two stories rolled into one. The first was narrated using the first-person point of view, in which the nameless narrator expressed his emotion about the Verlaine. A shift occurred when the second story was foretold using the third-person point of view. The author uses the house to usher the first story to the second one. Who is the author? The author of the story, Mother Sauvage, is Henri-René Albert Guy de Maupassant. He was a 19th century French author, remembered as a master of short story form, and as a representative of naturalist school who depicted human lives and destinies and social forces in delusioned and often pessimistic terms. He was born on the 5th day of August in the year 1850 in Chaute de Maramel, Torvel-sur-Axe, France, and died on 6th day of July in the year 1893 in Passy, Paris, France. What is the kind of setting, and what way was it revealed? The setting is scenic because the writer visualized the scene of the action, and it was revealed by his historical background. The story is set during the winter of 1871 midway through the Franco-Prussian War. In Verlaine, a quaint village in the French countryside, snow covers the fields, and the forest lurk ominously, void of life. The countryside is dotted with small cottages emitting smoke from the chimneys. The characters were well described by the author. They have a clear character sketch. Later, you will find out why I said so. The first character is Mother Sauvage, described by Maupassant being a hard old woman, tall and thin, who seldom laughed and with whom one never jested. Although not stated directly, Guy de Maupassant suggests that his main character, the protagonist, is also the antagonist. The title alone leads the audience to believe this is true, though it is in the third-person point of view and one cannot read the thoughts of the characters. The narrator accurately shows the reader the change of heart. Traditionally, the protagonist and antagonist are separate individuals, but Mother Sauvage should not be viewed as such. Mother Sauvage experiences change in her life that forces her to share the role of protagonist and the antagonist. When she received the letter informing her of her son's death, the motives changed within her. With a letter this blunt, anyone would see a change in themselves. This proves her to be a dynamic character. The two different terms give the audience a feel of her protagonist and antagonist personalities. A mother is someone who would care and love for someone. This is shown through her protagonist portion of the story. She houses these Prussian soldiers without ever wanting to harm them. Sauvage suggests that she is wild and cannot be contained. The savage comes out in her when she becomes an antagonist. As soon as Mother Sauvage kills the Prussian soldiers, the antagonist in the act of being savage is present. The second character is the son Sauvage, Victor, a 30 years old, so tall and thin, with his hooked nose and his brown eyes and his heavy mustache, which made a roll of black hair upon his lips. The next characters are the 4 Prussian soldiers, who are great fellows with a fair complexion, blond beards, and a blue eyes, who had not grown thin despite the fatigue which they had endured already, and who also, though in a conquered country, had remained kind and gentle. They even cleaned the kitchen, rubbed the tiles, split the wood, peel the potatoes, doing up all housework. One of them even shows his compassion for the old woman when she was not eating. Then, the last two characters, the narrator and Serval. The narrator is one who narrates the whole story. The narrator has empathy for Mother Sauvage and the four soldiers, while on the other hand, Serval, a friend of the narrator, and the one who tells the story to the narrator, remains bitter because of Mother Sauvage's action that caused his chateau to be destroyed. Now let's go on to the summary. The story presents when the short story talks about Mother Sauvage's son, Victor, going to war, only to later find out he got killed by a cannonball. As the story goes on, Mother Sauvage suffered from the loss of her son, which she took revenge on the four Prussian soldiers by burning the house down with them in it. She finally admits her crime to the Prussian officer, where she then dies. Let's go to the stages of the plot in the short story, Mother Sauvage. We have 6 stages starting from exposition, then the conflict, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the last part, the resolution, or we can also call the denouement. Let's start with the exposition of the short story. 2 men are out hunting in the French countryside, the narrator and Serval. The latter tells the story of Sauvage family. The father was killed by a police with gunshot to the head, and Serval goes on to tell the story of old Mother Sauvage and his son, who volunteered at age 33 to fight in the war. Mother Sauvage, isolated far from the village and known to have money, is assigned to quarter 4 young Prussian soldiers. The men do chores around the house as if it were their own. Mother Sauvage continually asks the young man about the French regiment of the 23rd Line, where her son is in the front, but the young Prussians know nothing. The conflict in the story. Later, the postman gives Mother Sauvage a letter from one of her son's comrades in arms, which informs her of her son's death. The rising action of the story starts when the Prussians bring home a live rabbit for a meal, which Mother Sauvage has difficulty in killing. As she finishes the preparation of the meal, she asks the young man for the names and home addresses. Mother Sauvage does not partake in the meal. As they finish dinner, she insists in providing the young soldiers with hay to make their stay in the loft more comfortable. The climax of the story is when, after the soldiers fall asleep, Mother Sauvage removes the ladder from the loft and starts a fire in the fireplace, which does not range out of control until she stokes the fire with more hay. Mother Sauvage stands outside with her son's rifle to make sure the Prussians cannot escape. She hears their clamor of human screams and stands guard. The falling action of the story is then when she is sure that the Prussians are dead. She throws the rifle into the fire and one loud shot goes off. At the ending of the story, or what we call the denouement or the resolution, the other villages and soldiers rush to her home, and a German officer interrogates Mother Sauvage. She informs him that the soldiers were in the fire and she started the fire. She hands the officer the list of names and addresses she had gathered from the young Prussian soldiers and is immediately pushed against her home and shot almost in two, with the letter informing her of her son's death bloody in her hand. Let's move on to the point of view in the story. The story is written from the perspective of the narrator, who retells Mother Sauvage's story as told by his friend Serval. Influenced by Gustave Flaubert, Guy de Maupassant writes in the realist style which focuses on object reality and shows instead of text. The kind of point of view that the story uses is the third-person point of view. The narrator is not involved in the story, and she or he is the observer. In the atmosphere in the story, Maupassant's clear description of each event created an extreme picture leaving imprints of sorrow. This further created a gloomy atmosphere. Throughout the story, we can feel the characters longing for happiness. Death, war, brutal killings can also be read in the story, which further intensified the story's dark atmosphere. The tone in the story. It might also be possible that de Maupassant is sad and feeling sorry and pity, suggesting that what occurred in Varlon during the Franco-Prussian War has not been forgotten by those who live there. Though the war is long over, the pain of the war lingers for many. That's why he takes pity in those innocent in the war. Let's go to the symbolisms in the short story. The first one is the letter. The letter that informs Mother Sauvage of her son's death introduces a complication of the story. Mother Sauvage will have to choose how to react to the news. The second is the riffle. Mother Sauvage takes her son Rusty Riffle with her when she goes to town to shop. It symbolizes her independence. The third is the rabbit. The rabbit is caught or stolen by Prussian soldiers for food to eat and reminds Mother Sauvage of her son. And the fourth and the last one is the hay. Under the guise of providing a better night's sleep for the Prussian soldiers, Mother Sauvage gives the young men highly flammable hay, which leads to their death in the fire. The next slide will be the themes in the story. I have found a total of 6 themes in the short story, Mother Sauvage. These are lust, revenge, innocence, hardship and control, war, and violence. Let's start with the loss. The loss of hope to live for Mother Sauvage. She loses Victor, her son, and the only remaining reason for her to live, as she already loses her husband. Revenge. Revenge is one of the major themes of the story. Mother Sauvage killed the Prussian boys, which she described as good sons as form of vengeance. Innocence. Might also be possible that de Maupassant is suggesting that in a war, there are innocent victims like both Serval and Mother Sauvage. Hardship and control. Not only Mother Sauvage alone, in fact, but the whole Varlon also had to live through the hardship and control that they needed to house and feed the soldiers even though the Prussians were the enemy. War. This may be important as de Maupassant may be suggesting that what occurred in Varlon during the Franco-Prussian War has not been forgotten by those who live there. Though the war is long over, the pain of the war lingers for many, Serval being an example, which may be the point of that de Maupassant is attempting to make. He may be suggesting that though a war may be short-lived, people's lives are transformed and changed forever. Violence. The story shows violence. It has portrayed the tragic death and brutal killings and pictures of events that the story might even appeal traumatic to the younger readers. Let me answer 3 questions from the book for you. Number 1, or the first question is the mother's behavior understandable? Are her actions at the end of the story morally right or wrong? My answer is no. Mother Sauvage's actions were not understandable because it's not justifiable to kill another person. Especially, she killed not only one person but 4 young, kind, and gentle soldiers. Her actions at the end of the story are morally wrong because even though she has no reason to live at all and the pain she feels is too much, she doesn't have the right to kill another human being because murder is a crime and a big mistake, not only in the eyes of the people in the society, but also in the eyes of God who created us all. The second question is, how does war change a person? Cite events in the story to prove the answer. My answer is, war has a this detrimental effect on the health and well-being of nations. It causes people to have traumas and mental illness. Studies have shown that conflict situations lead to more deaths and disabilities than any major illnesses. The effects of the war includes long-term physical and psychological harm to children and the elderly. Just like in the scenes in the short story, I can say that Mother Sauvage is mentally not okay or mentally not stable because she will not burn her house and kill those soldiers if her mind is in good condition. I can say that she is insane already. Anger, hatred, and longing for her son had eaten her heart, so she could no longer fight the problem in her mind. And the death of his son and the war is the reason why she became like that. The third and the last question. If you were the mother, would you also do the same? My answer is if I were the mother, I would never do the same as what she did to her life. Because even though her life is miserable, she must not take revenge on the innocents. Life is precious and sacred, so no one is allowed to kill fellow men. So even if I am in her situation, I would never do that. I would never think of taking revenge in my way. The best reaction to her condition is just to accept the loss of her child, to continue her life alone, and create more memorable and happy things even when she's alone. Life must go on. What did I learn? I learned that a mother's love is unconditional, but having an act of revenge is never justifiable. And revenge is not about love anymore. It is already selfishness. Selflessness because you are just doing things just to satisfy yourself without thinking about another person's welfare. What about you? Did you learn something? If you learned something, then don't forget to comment it down in the comment section below. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.